On October 10th, there was an apocalypse in crypto, but no one could explain the real reason. Ethereum lost 25% of its value, and major altcoins like Ripple dropped by more than 10%. And the market still hasn't recovered. Because behind all this decline, there's a decision that will be announced on January 15th. This decision could send Bitcoin soaring again or cause it to crash even harder. Let's take a look at the reason behind this deep storm and talk about what could happen until January 15th. In this video, I'll clarify 3 points. We'll look at the impact of MSCI's January 15th decision on Bitcoin and altcoins. We'll discuss how MicroStrategy Cycle works, and we'll talk about what the market will be expecting until January 15th and what the decision might be. Why is MSCI so important? MSCI, one of the largest index providers in global finance, started a very important debate on October 10th. They started a discussion about whether to remove Bitcoin-focused companies like MicroStrategy, which holds the most Bitcoin in its treasury, from the indexes. You might say, what's the big deal? But the story behind it is much more complex and deep. The MicroStrategy cycle. Along with MicroStrategy, the market was pushed up quite a bit, friends. The market was rising. The strategy company keeps buying Bitcoin. As Bitcoin rises, the company's balance sheet grows. And as the company grows, it becomes eligible to be included in stock market indexes. And here's the critical point. A company, when it enters major indexes, some passive funds and ETFs that track the index are required to automatically buy these shares. You might ask, what do you mean? I'll explain it simply right away. This is how the mandatory buying mechanism of passive funds works. For example, a fund that tracks the Nasdaq 100 promises its investors the following. I will track the performance of the Nasdaq 100 exactly, 1-to-1. If a new company enters the index, it will buy it. If a company leaves the index, the fund will automatically sell it so that it fulfills its promise to the user. So, for example, if MicroStrategy enters the S&P 500, the fund tracking it will automatically buy MicroStrategy. If it leaves, it will automatically sell it. This is exactly where the battle begins, friends. MSCI, the world's second largest index company, asked this question. Are Bitcoin-focused companies really companies? Or have they turned into structures that operate like funds? And this question created a shockwave effect in the market, friends. I was in front of the screen that night when the sharp crash happened. I looked at my screen and felt dizzy because I questioned my sense of reality. JP Morgan issued a warning statement for investors. They said this classification could cause a drop in MicroStrategy's stock, MSTR. There's also a rumor going around in the market. There's a rumor that JP Morgan is shorting MicroStrategy, but of course I have to clarify this. This is not a proven rumor. When we look at the chart, we can actually see that MicroStrategy has been falling for months, friends. So why is MSCI making this objection? Is there a problem with us? Let's take a look at that. Here's their claim. As MicroStrategy buys Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin gradually increases. And since the price of Bitcoin rises, the company's balance sheet grows. Because the company's balance sheet increases, it becomes eligible to be included in the indexes and gets added to them. As the company gets included in the indexes, passive funds that track these indexes automatically buy them, which strengthens the company. As the company gets stronger, it continues to buy Bitcoin. MSCI says this cycle creates a risky structure that inflates itself over time. In other words, they're asking, is MicroStrategy actually a company or is it just a fund that buys Bitcoin? Because it's not possible for funds to buy other funds. This is a very complex topic, friends, but I'm explaining it as simply as possible. For more straightforward crypto topics like this, you can subscribe to our channel, like the video, and leave a comment. We would be happy. And right at this point, a very clear response came from Saylor. He said, "Don't get me started on your father's wine bowl." Of course, he didn't actually say that. Saylor said, "We are not a fund, we are a real software company. We have a $500 million software business. We don't just hold Bitcoin. We are developing financial instruments and products with Bitcoin. No matter what the index decision is," Saylor said, "our long-term Bitcoin position will not change. The critical time is the January 15th decision. If MSCI classifies these companies as fund-like, MicroStrategy will be removed from some major indexes. Passive funds will be forced to sell. MSTR will lose significant value. The company's growth model will collapse and Bitcoin purchases may stop. If MSCI backs down, uncertainty in the market will decrease. There will be a perception that the worst-case scenario has already been priced in. And I think we could see rallies and a mini bull run in the first quarter after January 15th. But what if they say, no, actually MicroStrategy isn't a fund? I'll make my final assessment in a moment, but first I want to remind you of something. Before a possible rally, if you still don't have a Bitcoin account, you can sign up for Binance using the QR code on the screen or the link below and benefit from a registration bonus of up to $100. Don't forget to complete identity verification after you sign up. Now let's look at the conclusion. There are serious reactions to both MSCI and JP Morgan, and globally, many people are saying they've closed their JP Morgan accounts. Huge banks can no longer do whatever they want like they used to. Individuals are now very valuable. There's X, there's YouTube, and sometimes we can create a huge impact. And we've already seen this with GameStop. If a bad decision comes out, in other words, if the fund says, yes, we've already priced this in, we can continue this way. So until January 15th, we might see slight ups and downs, but overall it will move sideways. And if on January 15th they say, yes, we're removing it, we could see another sharp drop there and then move to correct it. So this could be the worst case scenario anyway. But if a good decision comes out, after January 15th, we might see the mini rally I just mentioned. I hope this has been clear. This was the sharp decline we've experienced recently. Now we've found a real explanation for the drop, and we can more or less predict what might happen next. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.